Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesdays in Wiedemann, our second recital in the 2015-2016 series. Our last concert was around the toccata, and this program is around the Prélude. It deals with the Prélude. We only have a half an hour to explore this piece, this genre, but we will have a program of Jean Langlais, preludes by Jean Langlais, Georg Boehm, Dietrich Buxtehude, and Maurice Durufle. What is the prelude? What is a prelude? We use it often as this is a prelude to the hors d'oeuvre, is a prelude to the meal. Doing your makeup is a prelude to looking good, I guess. And what is it really? It's an introduction. It's an overture. It's a preface. It could be the beginning of a church service. Very often you have the prelude and the postlude. The first movement of a larger work, and overture. The first piece we have is the first movement of a larger work called the Suite Médiévale, the medieval suite. It also has a second title, which is Messe en forme de messe basse, Suite en forme de messe basse, which means a low mass. So every movement of this suite has a double purpose. It can be played for the concert as a medieval type suite which was in fashion quite a bit in the early 20th century, or as in this particular prelude, it can be the entrée, a prelude to the Mass, and the procession of the clergy coming in to the church and around the altar. So if you will, think of it in that manner. It's a very large, loud piece that invites you to walk slowly as one would in a procession. So we will hear now Prélude from the Suite Médiévale by Jean Langlais. short prelude, short processional, as is generally the beginning of a church service, and this is the Catholic Mass which we were talking about. This next piece is a chorale prelude on a hymn tune, which is Vater, Unser in Himmelreich, Our Father in Heaven, by Georg Boehm. You will see by his dates that he lived around the time of Bach. The general thing that was done with these preludes, of course, the prelude was to introduce the tune to the congregation who would then sing it. And very often, these preludes around this hymn tune, a hymn tune, were improvised. And it was such an ordinary thing to do, it was in the habit of the church organist to be able to play, to improvise a prelude on a hymn tune that the congregation was going to sing. Today, I'm going to play first the hymn tune as the congregation would sing. So you'll hear the harmonization, which is by Bach, the harmonization with the soprano, which is the hymn tune, and then do the prelude, which is supposed to come first. But you will know what the melody is from the four-part chorale hymn tune that I will play right at the beginning. Chorale prelude on the hymn Vater, Unser by Georg Boehm. someday I'll have a lapel mic where I won't have to hold this microphone. But we do have a microphone. That's the really good thing. Now, another piece by Dietrich Buxtehude. In the program on the toccata, we also had one by him, the toccata in D minor. This is the Preludium in D major, a very joyful piece. And it's not as we find later with Bach and his great preludes and fugues. Of course, it's an introductory piece, it's an overture, it's a piece that stands alone, and using it for just about every occasion you would want to use it for the church, for a concert nowadays. And you see that it is 139, Buxtehude, and in the order of which Buxtehude composed it. So Prelude in D major with several different sections, but you'll recognize them when you hear them. Dietrich Buxtehude, Prelude in D major. And now, already to the last part of the program, the Prelude from the Suite, another Suite, Opus 5 by Maurice Durufle. I must say that I knew both Jean Langlais and Maurice Durufle. I studied with Jean Langlais at the Schola Cantorum in Paris, and I had a few lessons with Maurice Durufle, but mostly with his wife and supreme organ virtuoso, Marie-Madeleine Durufle Chevalier. In fact, this entire suite was I played it for the last lesson that I took with Madame Durufle in Saint-Étienne-du-Mont, the Church of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont in Paris. In 1996, it was the Monday of Pentecost, just following the Sunday of Pentecost. And that's the last lesson I ever had. I was going to play this on the 100th anniversary of the American Guild of Organists National Convention, which was to be held in New York that year, 1996. So this prelude is one of three movements in this suite, Prélude Sicilienne and Toccata, just three movements. This is mainly for the concert repertoire. This prelude, you will see, forms a vast arc. I like to think of this melody as pulling a rope that takes giving you some resistance, and just pulling it, and never letting go. That's what this melody, this funereal, strong melody seems like. And he takes it all the way till the end, and it starts like this, and it goes like this. You'll hear full organ, and then ends in a more contemplative mode. One of my favorite pieces, the Prelude from the Suite, Opus 5 by Maurice Durufle.